Hello, Patreon family. Happy Friday. I hope y'all had an excellent week. Today, I'm coming to y'all once more with another situational celebrity birth chart reading, meaning we're going to be dissecting and analyzing a specific scenario and how that relates to their natal chart. So today, as you can see, this is going to be about Tiffany Haddish. She was in the news following an arrest. I think she was booked for a DUI somewhere in Atlanta. They said it was on Peachtree, but for those of y'all who are familiar with Atlanta, Peachtree is long as hell. Like Peachtree they literally could be anywhere. So I'm not sure exactly where she was at, but the point is, she had fell asleep behind the wheel. Officers didn't say that she tested positive for alcohol or being over the legal limit of alcohol. I think they more so specified that she could have been under the influence of marijuana, okay? But either way, that ass was sleep, okay? And so I thought it was really interesting because I wanted to draw some correlations astrologically, just because Tiffany has a lot of the same hookups that I see in the charts of clients who could have dealt with some of the same things, or people who could potentially be at risk for, the same when it comes to DUIs, falling asleep behind the wheel, so on and so forth. So let's go ahead and take a look. So Tiffany was born December 3rd, 1979 at 8:49 a.m. in Los Angeles, California, making her a hardcore Sagittarius. The number 3 is ruled by Jupiter. Okay, so it kind of compounds the effect of her Sagittarius sun. And one thing about dark-sided Sagittarius is that they can be buck wild. Like, these are people who can be, out of control, lawless. Now, obviously, I don't think Tiffany Haddish is completely dark-sided or whatever the case may be, but when out of alignment, even we're human, the best and most well-intentioned and well-behaved Sagittarians a lot of times end up in situations where they could break the law or could just make decisions that are just downright irresponsible, reckless, where it's girl, what were you thinking? Where were you thinking? You can even look at Sagittarius and its mutable quality of easily allowing things to escalate out of control. These are people who could easily find themselves in situations where either they're losing control or things just kind of spiral out, and then next thing you know, shit hits the fan. That's very Sagittarius. And it's really all about the excitement and the adventure, you know what I mean? And to boot, she has her sun at the 10th degree of Sagittarius, and it happens to be forming a wide conjunction. The orb is wide, but it still counts nonetheless to Neptune at the 19th degree, right? So that could literally deal with a person who could be buck wild, when they're under the influence, when they're drinking, smoking, whatever the case may be. Having your sun in conjunction to Neptune in general is an aspect that could, create a person who may have some addictive tendencies or qualities, or may look to drugs, alcohol, and things like that. And this is made even worse considering the fact that her Neptune is then forming in opposition to her Gemini moon. She technically has her sun and Neptune opposing her Gemini moon. You could look at that Gemini moon as her being in a vehicle, operating a vehicle. So having moon and Gemini opposed to Neptune is an aspect I see a lot in the charts of clients who could have DUIs. This is also a primary aspect for a really bad car accident too. Even if these people are not under the influence, a lot of times they may be very negligent behind the wheel or not really pay very good attention, which could easily translate into situations where, they're crashing or where there could just be mishaps on the road. But this is also a prime aspect that can point towards sleeping. These are people who could oftentimes sleep in their car. In some cases, these are people who can live in their car, but another way you could translate that is sleeping in the car, which she absolutely was. that kind of thing. So there's that. And all of this is really supported and backed by the fact that she's a Pisces South Node. And she does have her South Node in the second house, but Pisces just so happens to kind of be bleeding over into the third house. And the third house also deals with vehicles for her. So Pisces South Nodes in general, these are people who can actually have really big issues if they're not careful when it comes to, once again, addiction or substances, relying on substances, to where, once again, there's an element, because Pisces is co-ruled by Jupiter, so very similar to her being a Sagittarius, is like they can allow a lot of their vices and things to get out of control. So worst case scenario, I've seen this in the charts of people who can just straight up be addicts. And the fact that she does have Neptune impacting her two most personal planets so closely like that doesn't help. And if y'all remember, I think this was maybe last year, the year before, it may have been like 2 or 3 years ago now, but there was like, I think, a New Year's Eve performance or something like that she was supposed to do in Miami, and she bombed the performance. Like, she was on stage, but everybody could tell that she had been drinking a lot. Like, she was just straight up trash. Now, I don't really think she funny, but nonetheless, like, she was even more, like, a lot more unfunnier than she normally was, because she was just so all over the place. And I remember her getting like a lot of bad press, like receiving a lot of bad press over that performance. And that could definitely be tied back to the adverse effects of, her Neptune, and then also this Pisces South Node that she has, especially if she's someone who has to lean on drugs and alcohol in order to function, or, someone who can just kind of take it overboard in that department. Now, these are also people who can have issues with sleeping. So whether they're like sleeping too much or not getting enough sleep, they can be straight up insomniacs. With her having Jupiter in her 8th house, and then also, being a Virgo North Node. So she has her North Node in conjunction to that Jupiter, as well as Mars. In some cases, these people can even be put on medication that could, fuck with their body or have adverse effects in terms of, causing them to miss out on sleep, or, sleep too much, or people who may, get put on prescription medication, or, feel the need to take medicine in order to help them with those areas. So it really could be anything. I've also seen this in the charts of a lot of like pill poppers and stuff like that. And this is speculative on my part. There's no evidence of that, so let me just put that out there. I'm not trying to call her a peel head or nothing like that. But point is, she has a chart that definitely supports what she went to jail for. Not to mention, a lot of Pisces South Nodes can find themselves, if they're not careful, institutionalized. Now, you could look at this as being in jail. Same thing with the moon in opposition to Neptune, and her sun in conjunction to Neptune. All right. Specifically with her even having her Neptune in the 12th house. The 12th house could deal with imprisonment, or where she gets locked up, like out of town. These are people who can end up going to jail outside of the country, or, they travel out of town, get in trouble with the law. Now you got to worry about, going to jail in a town that you don't know nothing about, which I thought was interesting, because she's definitely from LA and she definitely got locked up in Atlanta. So that's that effect of having your sun in Sag conjoined to Neptune in Sag. So just to summarize, Pisces in the 3rd house could absolutely bring about car accidents, as well as create potential instances of DUIs, right? Driving under the influence. Some of these people can get caught with maybe drugs or alcohol in their cars, open containers. It can also lead to accidents. Now, moreover, when you look at the way Neptune is aspected, that could further increase the chances or the likelihood of this outcome. Specifically, when we talk about the moon in Gemini, Gemini also deals with vehicles in opposition to Neptune. That's a car accident waiting to happen. Once again, potentially, DUI, falling asleep behind the wheel, or driving under the influence of any type of medicine and or intoxicant. Some other indicators of this would be having like Neptune in the third house, adversely aspected. I've even seen in some charts, and this is not applicable to Tiffany, but just in general, Mercury in negative aspects to Neptune could also produce a very similar effect. The same could even be inferred from Mercury in the 12th house. Now, that would be more give or take. Once again, you also would have to take into consideration what Mercury is doing, how it's aspected. It's very layered, but definitely in Tiffany's case, it all checks out. She also has her Mercury at the 21st degree of Scorpio, conjoined to Uranus in the 10th house. And that actually could have a lot to do with her being someone who tends to black out, especially, once again, when under the influence, or, someone, when they party, they can party really, really hard, okay? Specifically with that Gemini moon in the 5th house. So you could look at that as a person who, party so hard to the point of like blacking out, psychosis, not really remembering certain things. Hell, with her being a Pisces South Node, I actually wouldn't be surprised if she was like a professional sleepwalker. So there's that. Now, something else to keep in mind too, with her Neptune in that 12th house, she has to be really careful, because that could have even easily materialized into an accident that could have landed her in the hospital. Same thing with having Pisces in the 3rd house. When these people are in accidents, they do run the risk, or a higher risk, I guess you could say, than others of, winding up in the ER. So all in all, I'm glad she's okay. I'm glad she didn't get hurt. I'm glad nobody else got hurt. But she needs to be really careful. Mercury in conjunction to Uranus in Scorpio, for what it's worth, can be like a deadly combination in terms of like, cars. I've seen some of these people have near-death experiences in cars, near-death, car accidents or whatever the case may be. Now, it just so happened she did describe a situation where her mother was in a really bad car accident. I think because her father like cut the brakes on the car. Y'all feel free to drop down in the comment section to clarify. She went on the Breakfast Club a while ago and was talking about this, which actually makes a lot of sense with her being a Gemini moon, right? And having that moon in opposition to Neptune. So her mom having some crazy kind of mishap with a vehicle, even with that Mercury in conjunction to Uranus, like a near-death experience. The 10th house also deals with the mother, so a near-death experience. And I think, or maybe her mom did die, or a deadly incident. Uranus deals with accidents, behind the wheel. But all in all, once again, I said this to say she got a lot of karma with vehicles, also lots of karma with substances. If there is a problem, girl, you need to go get help ASAP. I'm glad you are right with your non-funny ass, okay? But you live to make me not laugh another day, okay? So I'm going to end the video on that note. Y'all drop down in the comment section and let me know what you think of the situation. And if you can relate to some of the placements and aspects talked about in the reading. And I'll catch y'all in the next video. Bye.